Good morning. This is Tanya with Peddlers Den in Salmonac, Illinois. And today we are going to be showing you how to do our holiday lever card. So I'm going to set this aside. We're going to take a look at the finished card. This is a lever card. We stamp and color the overlay, and then we stamp and color the insert. We've left plenty of room for you to personalize your card. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stamp our overlay. We're going to put this into our platform, secure it with the magnets. We're going to take our Making a Scene Holly Berry Red ink, and we're going to ink the sentiment that goes on the front of our card, and we're going to close the platform and we're going to press. Now, we don't have time during this presentation to really explain platforms to you. If you need more information on platforms, please reach out to me separately. I do want to point out, though, that we are using our Grip It to hold our stamps onto our platform. Grip It is a transparent mounting mat. We use it on both platforms and acrylic blocks. So again, if that's something that you'd like to have more information on, please reach out to us later and we'll take care of you. Now we're going to move into doing our holly and berries. So we take the holly and berry image and our black ink pad, and we ink it up. And you want to make sure that you have plenty of ink. We are stamping on uncoated paper. I typically work on coated paper, so I have to always be really careful when I'm working on uncoated paper to make sure that I get plenty of ink. You want to make sure that you press firmly without rocking. You want to make sure that you give the ink time to migrate from the stamp to the paper, and voila. Now, of course, we need to go around and do the other corners as well. So we're going to do that right here. And you're going to see me doing the same thing over and over again, pressing firmly without rocking. And because we have a limited amount of time, we are working quickly. So I'm going to have to kind of gloss over some things that I otherwise would take a little time to explain. But I do want to encourage you to reach out to me if you have any additional questions, and I will be more than happy to answer them for you. Now, once we have the overlay stamped, we're going to set it aside, and we're going to move into the inside of the card, which is called the insert. I believe I mentioned that we purchased this paper and we resell it, and it is already die cut and scored. Now, you want to do your stamping before you do your folding, and you are going to get some disruption of the image across these score and fold lines. This is why you want to make sure to do all your stamping before you do your folding. So the first thing I'm going to do, since we've already got our holly and berry image out and it's wet, we're going to put that in the corner. So we're going to bring that up over here, and we're going to put that right there. And as usual, you want to press firmly without rocking. You want to give the ink plenty of time to migrate. There we have it. Now, to do the what I call the main image, which is the wagon, You'll notice that the wagon wheel is positioned so that it's just barely on the die cut. And when you open this up, then you see the whole image. But when it's closed, you see the majority of the image and the wreath. So we're going to ink up the wagon. And I know it's really annoying to hear me tapping on the video. Not much I can do about that. So I'm going to put this right here. And I'm going to try to press nice and firmly, especially because we are going across score lines and die cut lines, and we're given the ink plenty of time to migrate, and we have a great image. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to add the snow here in the foreground, and that is this image. I like to have my snow at a slight angle so that I can tuck the barn behind it later. So I'm going to ink that, and then I'm going to bring it at an angle across my card here and press. And there we have it. Now, to tuck the barn behind the snow, you must use a mask. If you purchase the kit, you're going to have a piece of Eclipse tape in the kit. You're going to stamp your image onto the Eclipse tape and then cut that top contour. And you're going to position it. Now I'm using a mask that has been used before, partly so that you can see the difference between the dirty edge and the card. If this was just white, you wouldn't be able to see where I'm positioning it. But you can see that I am positioning the top edge of the mask below the stamped image. I'm leaving a small gap. This is necessary for you to avoid a halo. A halo is when you add your barn and all of a sudden there's a gap where the mask meets the paper. Those are usually not a good look. So I'm going to ink my barn. Now, one of the things that's important to understand is to tuck that barn behind that snowbank. You're going to have to make sure that the entire length of the rubber is actually on the mask. If you miss and you get it on the insert instead, one end of your barn is going to be floating in midair, and that's usually not a good look either. So we're going to put this, let's see, right about there. And we're going to press nice and firm. Now this is going across the mask, so you need to press firmly where it meets the mask. It's also going across a score line. You need to press firmly where it goes across the score line. And there we have it. Now before we remove the mask, and actually I'm going to move the mask up just a little bit. Before we remove that mask, we're going to put the rest of our snow in. You wouldn't have to mask. You could eyeball it. But masking makes it a little bit easier, takes some of the guesswork out of it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the rest of our snow on. And then we're going to remove the mask. Now we're going to discuss coloring. Partly because we're working on uncoated paper, I am using color pencils. My favorite color pencils are the Prismacolor. I always keep a little portable sharpener on my table because you're going to want to kind of keep a point. Now, I do the same technique for the leaves as what I use on the wreath and any other foliage. So we're a little short on time. We're not going to color the whole card, but what we are going to do is I'm going to show you the technique. So we're going to start with some of the greenery. I'm using the Prismacolor Lime Peel, and I am going to quickly put down what I call a foundation of my lightest value. And I'm not going to do all of these, but you're gonna get an idea of what I'm doing. I use a very, very light touch. It's very important that you not bruise your paper. You can always go back and add more. Then I'm going to move on to my darker green. I like to use duals of all my colors. This is the kelp green. It's, for all intents and purposes, the same color as marine green. So I'm gonna basically doodle. I'm basically just doing, you know, short little swift lines here that imitate the veining of the leaf and gives you some of that darker value. Okay, the reason a lot of people's color pencil looks inadequate is because they don't get their darks in. Now, I want this black to be a little darker and a little more solid. So I'm going back in with a black pencil, and I'm going to boost that a little bit. And this is just a black Prismacolor as well. So this is the technique that I'm using to do all of the foliage. The berries are really too small to use multiple colors on, so I am just using the Scarlet Lake. Now we're going to move over to the wagon, and the wreath would be done the same way. I very, very gently, with a very light hand, I lay down what I call a foundation tint of my lightest green. This is the lime peel again. And then you're going to see me doing exactly the same thing as I did on the leaves. I'm going to take the kelp green and I'm going to doodle. And by that I mean I'm going to do swift little strokes that imitate the direction that the pine boughs would be laying. I'm not at all careful about this. You can see I'm just kind of rotating the paper and just kind of getting those shadows in there. And you should be able to see the difference between here where I've added the dark green and here where I have not. I'm going to try to bring it up to the camera a little bit so that hopefully you can see it even a little bit better. But adding that additional dark value, deepening those shadows and giving those shadows another dimension by using green instead of using black, makes a huge difference. And I'm not careful. I'm literally doodling. Okay. On the bow, I actually like to use 2 shades of red. I'm going to come in with my bright red, which is the Scarlet Lake. And I'm just going to kind of put down my foundation light layer again. And then I'm going to come back with the Tuscan red. And here where they overlap, I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow. And here, and here. And some of these are nothing more than little dots. But it's incredible how just adding hints of color can make a big difference. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to make that bright red just a little more solid, so it's a little more opaque. And again, I'm using a very light touch. And there we have that finished. Now we're going to go to the wood. Now for the wood, I'm using a combination of light umber and dark umber. And you guessed it, I'm going to lay down a foundation layer very, very quickly with a very, very light touch of the light umber. I'm going to come down here on the undercarriage. This is the handbrake. Now, on the tongue, I'm going to hit this so I have a really nice point. And on the tongue, I'm going to put the light umber here on the top. And then I am going to come back in with the dark umber, and I'm going to do that on the edge, which would quite naturally be more shadowed. And that is going to give us some dimension. Again, I'm going to lift this up. Hopefully you can see that. Hopefully you can see that by using the two shades it makes a big difference. I'm also going to come in here. I'm going to darken the undercarriage a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of shadow to the edge of the handbrake. I'm going to actually add a little bit here underneath where they would put their feet. And hopefully you can begin to see this pop. Now, for the wood graining, I'm going to take the dark umber and I am going to imitate the grain of the wood. By now you probably have noticed that this is all the same technique. I like to work with duos of colors, and if I had a larger piece here I would even use 3 colors. I would use a trio. But in these tiny little small spaces, 2 colors works really well most of the time. And it really makes a big difference. Now I can always go back with the light umber and I can boost some of the saturation so that you don't see as much of the white paper showing through. And that is the basic technique that I use for the color pencil. You would see me repeat that to finish the wagon. You would see me repeat that down on this barn and the greenery. But that is the technique. Now we're going to discuss assembling your card. You're going to adhere the overlay to the front of the card and you're going to center it over the window. The inside you're going to fold using the typical Peaks and Valley fold. You're going to burnish your folds down so that they're nice and flat. And then you're going to insert this like that. You're going to pull this down and you're going to make sure that this lines up with the window right there. Then you're going to put adhesive on the back side of this and make sure it's stuck there. Once that is done, it becomes really, really easy because you fold it up, you put adhesive right here, you close the card, you burnish it down, and when you've done all of that, you end up with this. You've got plenty of room here for personalization. It's just a really fun card. Now, if you're a scenic stamper and you want to, you can actually create a full-blown scene inside of your card. You can see both of these. We've used our cloud stencil to create clouds. We've used some of our woodland creatures and what have you to make a foreground. So there are no limits to what you can do with this. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you'll take a little bit of time and visit our website. If you place an order, please use the discount code Christmas20. This will get you 20% off of kits and stamps through July 31st. Thank you very much. Goodbye.